Okay, we should be live, according to this. We hope so. Well, good morning again, officially. Okay, hopefully people online will see and hear that we had some issues getting things set up and sent to you on the video. So I apologize for that, but the college had trouble, took too long, and they're trying to correct that, speed up that process. Okay, today was the day that you were supposed to turn in your notes. I highly suggest sometimes you wait to the day that they're due. You might pick something else up in class the last minute, but that's okay. Several of you sent online notes 2 days ago, actually Friday, I guess. So, anyway, I know some of you are very organized and want to get that done ahead. Excuse me, ahead of time. Okay, I want to mention a few things more about Homer's Odyssey and a couple more terms, and actually read a couple inserts from the Odyssey to you. To see if you got the same understandings. First question I'd like to ask you all is, and I think it's obvious, but you never know. Homer did live in a time when there was a lot of extensive traveling and exploration going on, trying to figure out what the world was and where it was and how to get around in it. And anyway, when he wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, there are some historians that think that a good share of those two tales or stories are actually real. They are factual places, but they are done in disguise. So the question would be, do you think from this Odyssey, is it real? Is it make-believe? And what makes you think one way or the other? And you guys are on the spot since you're live and in person. Do you think it's a real tale or story? Because that's how things were explained. Or is it totally made up? Okay, can a cyclops represent something? That's why I'm wondering, could parts of this be real? Could he have made these journeys and experienced some of this? And then this could possibly be a way that he could express himself about his beliefs. A little louder, please. Yes. But are you leaving yourself room to interpret? When you hear a story, do you always think in those terms that, is this really accurate and real, what I'm being told? Or what is being said to me? Put yourself in the modern day news. I don't know how much news you guys watch or listen to on the phone, updates about what's happening around here. Do you question that? So the whole point is just to get you to think that things like this could be possible, and then the exaggerations of objects and places. There's undoubtedly a cave somewhere, undoubtedly in this era of time, sheep were a prized possession. They were eaten and they were slaughtered and they were traded. And just to make that point, the thing is, if I ask you that in a quiz or something or a test, I think it's kind of like a catch-22. You could answer it either way and be kind of right, because this is how you felt and this is how it could portray itself. So keep that in mind. Okay, what is paganism? What is polytheism? Right. So polytheism is the way of the culture right now because the Greek gods were many, for lack of a better way of saying it. There was a God for everything. And if you didn't understand, there was a God for that. And there's a God for love, there was a God for hate. But what is paganism? Pagan. What is a pagan? Wild guess. If I say it this way, maybe this will help. You are a pagan. But you are not. Or you're the pagan and you're not. What's that pop into your mind? How dare you call me a pagan? I believe in. Does it have anything to do with religion, Christianity, the way of thinking? A narrowed view. Yeah, sometimes that's how you can get a definition without looking it up online. Because when you do that, sometimes you just get a view from a textbook or a dictionary, and man, you don't leave any room for expansion about it. So, what are we going to decide paganism is? If you're a pagan, you're an individual. So if it's an ism, it's a belief or a group action, possibility of a group action. Are we all pagans? Okay, I'll give you permission to look it up real quick. I'll go on to the next. Homer also said, there is no fundamental order or pattern to the universe. Find it? Okay. He's going to read what good and loud, since my mic's right here. I hope.
Pagan is a person holding religious beliefs other than those of the main world religion.
Oh. So if it's a group of people, they have that belief. If it's individual, that makes sense now. Homer was a pagan. Yet he still had some of the beliefs of what was happening in his culture, but he was fighting it and trying to prove otherwise, that there were other ways. So the theory and the reasoning, this is how an apologist, remember that term? It's how an apologist sometimes can cover up or not be crucified or jailed or thrown in prison or even killed. So as we go through these individuals in this textbook, you're going to see almost every one of them had that background of being a person that had something to offer, and they had to be very careful. Okay, so we can say in the story of the setting of Homer, the culture of the time was more of a polytheistic type of culture, many gods. Homer was just the opposite, trying to say there are a god perhaps, or limited gods, because he wasn't sure 100%, but he knew it was different. He knew there was a difference between good and evil, and he just knew something. But he wasn't quite sure how to prove it to people. So he did research, and this is where he came up with this idea that there is no fundamental order or pattern, because that's what society believed. But he said, I'm going out there and I'm going to try to show you or tell you. And now it's up to you guys, if you read a whole bunch of things about Homer, to decide, did he really get his point across? Well, you're going to find out he kind of did after we get, to Plato and Socrates, and we get on away from his time. Okay, we mentioned this a little bit last week, but I want us to go back through it, and we may have to use your phone again if needed. What is meant by a pragmatic act? In the meanwhile, what is a act of virtue? There's a limited difference, and there is a difference between an act that is pragmatic, I use the word, or it's done through virtue. Think you got maybe an example. One is done for a specific reason. There's a hint. One is done, I'm going to cheat a little bit, done out of kindness, out of love. One of them is done, and you have to decide which way. Done for personal gain. Huh? Right. I don't know if they heard that. I'm sorry, because you got a soft voice, and we got deeper voices. And you got a mouthful of food. But get the hint. If it's done through virtues of, and they both can be twisted. Don't say it's this and nothing else. But they can be blended. They can be stretched. But that's what I want you to get. If it's a pragmatic act, can we say deliberate act? It's done with a purpose. And the purpose could be good, sure. If it's done with an act of virtue. He tried to portray these in his stories. And I think he did a pretty good job of painting it both ways. What do you got? No emotion, and ta-da, step one, step two, the act. And this pragmatic act could be evil, and it could be good. Sometimes a person, I could speak for myself, I'm pretty organized. I like things done in, steps and sequence. And sometimes when that gets thrown out of whack, it throws your thinking off or your emotions off. Okay, virtue. Do we need anything else on that one? Okay, now, within the tale of the Odyssey, there's some main characters that you probably should have in your notes, and hopefully some of you do. That's why you turned your notes in too early. You might miss. But some things I hoped you picked up. You'd have to think about this, but who did King Alcinous, Alcinous, who and what did he represent in this tale? I'm just going to give you a bunch and then we'll come back to it. Who is Ulysses? Who were Circe? 'Circe. 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 ' Calypso, Calypso. Who were they? What did they try to do to Ulysses? These are main characters. There's something in a reference. You have to have read the tale, at least the one in our text. What is neat milk? It's a special type of milk representing something. N-E-A-T. Who or what did Jove, could be pronounced Jove, J-O-V-E. Who was that? Or what did it represent, more likely? And they make a lot of reference to the child of morning, not the morning where you're crying, but the morning of the breaking day, in reference to dawn and sunset. Now, biblically, if you remember some of your Bible stories, we always have a direct relation to east and west. One direction is the light of God. One direction is darkness. And there's reference in this epic tale of those in the Odyssey. And that's supposed to help you put the story together and then to understand what was going on. So first of all was Jove, bless you, J-O-V-E. Was that a person, a place, or a thing? Okay, if you didn't hear that, he said it's like a god. He thought it was. How about you? You agree? She agrees. You online, do you agree? I want to read this little section to you. When the child of morning, this is not the kind you cried, child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn appeared, we admired this special island and wandered all over it, while the nymphs, Jove's daughters, roused the wild goats that might get some meat for our dinner. On this we fetched our spears and bows and arrows from our ships, dividing ourselves into 3 bands and begin to shoot the goats. Heaven sent us equal sport. I had 12 ships with me, and each ship got 9 goats. I made sure, this is not from the reading, he made sure that everybody got equal portions. So there's a deliberate act there. You could even use that as an act of a pragmatic act. He knew if he gave one ship more goats than the other, there would not be peace. There would not be harmony. He's a very wise person. Back at the beginning of the story, there's a couple things that gives you the hint what some of these characters are. That's why it's very important maybe that you read some of the things more than once as we get to the next, as I call it, character in our textbook. Okay, here's a little part. Firstly, I will tell you my name, that you too may know it, and one day, when I outlive this, my sorrow may become my guest, though I live so far from all of you. I am Ulysses, son of Leucorpus, renowned among all mankind for all the manners, so that my fame ascends to heaven. I live in such and such, and on and on. He's painting a picture that he is a noble person with values and has virtues and is humble. And he is telling you, in a short version, that there's more to this world than just, possessions and the Greek gods and beware, beware. And same, as a poet, he wants you to enjoy the moment, so he paints this picture of these islands in his speech patterns and his storytelling. Neat milk represents something special within the story, and it's picked out. Do either one of you in class have that written down?
I know that it's what the Cyclops is drinking in his. I don't know what's significant.
Okay, it was a special mixture of milk from the sheep that, remember when he fell asleep? It was doctored. And sometimes when you drink neat milk, let's say, I don't think people do this, but I can remember my mom and grandmother, they would heat up the milk for bedtime, and you would drink a little warm milk, and it made you fall asleep easier. But in this case, that's what it represents, but it also represents, I don't like to use the word poisoned, but it made him fall into a deep sleep. So they had the choice to kill him or, whatever, but they soon realized they would never escape. Or they actually knew that, but they were so fearful of who he would eat next, supposedly, and devour or kill. And did he really eat the people, or did he just kill them? There's again how you can play on this story and what it represents. That gives everybody an opportunity to look at something from their perspective, I feel, to see it in a different light. And we did talk about this, but when you get to the point of the spiritedness, I had a couple students ask me, they couldn't find that. There's reference to it at the end of the tale. There's reference to it if you just look up the word and break it down. I had one student actually take the word, hetero means something, and thymus means something separate. You put them together, but it's the spirit of what? You guys should know that just like that.
They called it a different kind of spirit in the text.
Right.
It was like the spirit of goodness.
Right. And if you look up the words, I think you could form that from it, but just by what happened at the end of the story, you guys should be able to tell that he changed his mind. He did do a couple things in revenge and stuff, but he decided that, maybe this is the way to go, and this is how I can express it to people in history. And I know he wasn't thinking about 400 years past his life that, somebody's going to get this, but, it came out naturally from him. So, anyway, those are some of the main highlights that I wanted you to get from it. And in the conclusion on the back of your textbook, I want to reemphasize, this is on page 30 and 31. This entire textbook is set up for this purpose. So when we begin Plato, there will be an introduction to Plato. There will be something in the middle, and it has a name. And then there is a conclusion or a summary written by somebody. This summary of the Odyssey was translated, as it tells you right there, about 1900 by a person. You can imagine many other people taking this story and translating it, just like we have the Bible. and you get some different versions of the Bible, but the meat, so to speak, of the Bible of this story is the same. You should be able to tell me what you think the major point to the story was. I'm going to read this and see if if this helps you. When the Cyclops devoured two of his men, Odysseus, their warrior leader, immediately is inclined to take revenge, draw his sword, slay or try to slay the monster. But at that moment it is said in a different kind of spiritedness, and then in parentheses, Heterothymus prevails. Odysseus realized that if he kills Cyclops, he and his men will be able to move the boulder that guards the entrance to the cave they're in. They'll be trapped forever. He restraint here is not of an act of virtue, but rather that of circumstances of a pragmatic act. And there comes those. Now, with that in mind, is that the theme of the story? It's a debate, but you think about any story you tell. I don't think she was here. I told you about my adventures in the river yesterday, and it was a true story, a tale, and I just told some brief incidents of what we did in water